5:30. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is a special meeting work session, so we will stay with the agenda. Items for commission action. The first item is executive session for, let's see, election of our matters of non-elected personnel. So the motion I would make is I move that we recess for an executive session for the purpose of personnel matters of non-elected personnel pursuant to exception KSA 75-4319B1. The open meeting will resume at, we say, 6 with 30 minutes. Give us plenty of time. Yeah. And we're going to start with the commissioners, and then we'll invite City Manager Craig Whitehead in and City Attorney Jeff Chubb. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Make a motion that we extend for 15 minutes. We'll be back in session at 6:15.
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, I'll call the meeting back in session. There's no action taken. Just general. Normally, conversations like we have is done once a year, and it's hard to come together, and we need time to share back and forth, and we were able to do an executive session, address issues both ways concerned, and come together for the unity of the city, and I think we accomplished what we intended to do, and we'll be having another one before the end of the year to just keep on track. So thank you for your patience. The next item on our agenda is consider proposal for community-based strategic planning. We received the proposal from Tanner LLC. Craig, would you like to kind of highlight?
Sure. Yeah, you've heard me talk about community-based strategic planning and propose that, and I obviously recommend it, and I recommend this firm wholeheartedly. I've worked with him not on strategic-based planning, community, what we're talking about tonight. I've seen his work in neighboring cities and talked with that, and that's one of the reasons I proposed it in my last community as well. But I've worked with him 3 years on other strategic planning processes, the one-day kind of things that we would do as an organization. So I have a lot of confidence in him. I don't know if you had a chance to call any of the references that were in there, but they all obviously speak very highly of the process. And I like, and so I that's why I recommended it, because I thought it would be good for this community. We've been talking about we should be doing more planning, and this, of course, is the whole point is community based. It's not going to be a committee, the commission or an advisory committee that would be appointed that would be determining what that vision is. It's going to be the community that's going to put that input's going to be gathered from all segments of the community to come up with that plan. So I heartily recommend it that we move forward with that. And I will tell you, it's a very reasonable price for the work that they will do.
Now, the strategic plan would basically be projecting 5 years into the future.
That's kind of the time horizon they look at, 5 years, and often sometimes. For those that don't know, the plan comes up with kind of maybe 5 or 6 prime directives, for kind of a lack of a better term. But what does the community see? And something like we want to live in a safe, an enjoyable community for the future of our kids and that type of a thing. But then under that, you'll have action items, kind of how do we get there? How do you measure success? And typically it's that 5-year timeline to get there. But oftentimes but then you can do it again. But along the way, you may tweak it. You may, it's not a set in stone. You can always look at it, as I've talked with others, those 5 main points or 6, they come pretty evidently clear after you get the data, what the priorities are of the community. That's the whole point is to get the community involved and get that input. They make the decisions.
It becomes a tool then as we do budget and capital improvement plans to take that information along with the city-based strategic plan to look at capital improvements or addressing needs specific.
Yeah, it's great for the city commissioners and city staff, finance, when we're going through a budget process and we say, look, here's a priority for us, and well, there's some issue there. Well, if that's one of the prime directives to meet that goal, that really gives you that backing. Here, look, the community has spoken on this. This is a real important priority. It gives staff, commission backing to move forward with whatever that initiative might be. But that's one of the I think key things is you use that to supplement, like kind of just what you're saying, leading off those different plans. And that's the other thing is sometimes you have strategic plan, you have our capital plan, and they all should, again, funnel from those directives. They set those priorities. So we're developing your capital plan. Well, look, they want to live in safe. They want improved streets or something, and well, all right, we'll address that in this manner, so that it kind of flows from that. So you're right.
And this will be posted on the website when it's complete?
Oh,
for
sure,
review,
it would be everywhere. I mean, we'll try to put it everywhere. It'll be out. That's part of this. Once it's done, and everybody can see what the. I know it's not called prime directives, but that's I'm thinking Star Trek or something. But basically that strategic directive.
Gary Lewis? No, Jerry.
I was going to say Gary Lewis and the
Gary Lewis
and the Playboy.
We've talked about this for several years, and I know, Lewis, you're newer, but this is something we've gone over and over the years. I think it's very important to do some procedure like this. Otherwise, it's just the three of our, we've got 3 opinions up here. People will say, well, you're obsessed with the downtown, which I'm like, yeah, of course, isn't everyone? And they say, no, they're not. So I really think getting the whole community involved in this strategic planning process is great. This guy's done a lot of them. I've liked all his work I've seen. I know it's a lot of money, but I think to have a direction, a vision for the city 5 years out is really important. So I like the idea of moving forward with it.
Lois?
It gives people from the community to actually get together and determine what's important to them.
Right.
What I may think, like you mentioned, is important to me may not necessarily be to have the people sitting on this side. So it does let people in the community get involved in the process, and lay out a plan as to what they would like to see. And I like the presentation. I thought he did a real good presentation, and I think in this case it would be money well spent, because some of the issues we identified and he brought up, if we can get moving on them and see the results, I think people will be very pleased to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think this is probably one of the weaknesses that I've seen is a lack of planning. And it's either one-sided or no-sided, and this actually will allow the community to give us input and direction, and for us then to take ours. So it kind of becomes volume 1 and volume 2, and it will be a tool One thing I liked in his proposal, the committee that's assembled will still work with community members to gather data. So it goes beyond just the one selected for the committee, but getting true input from the people that they're associated with. And I see, you know, each of us have different people we associate within town, so we've got a true diverse group. One thing, you know, I wondered after reading the proposal and wondering if for our group, if we would want to include like the superintendent, Rusty Arnold, Dr. Barwick, maybe somebody from industry and then healthcare, that they would help, you know, as we start really putting in a direction. We're looking at business input. Where do they see weaknesses for our input, our future in industry and education? How can we better interact with both the college and the high school and elementary education? So, you know, I think 9 is a good number to start with, but I don't know what the possibility of expanding just those extra 4. You know, if you had 3 tables, that's 4 to a table, just like we had. So, but, you know, I think when we're looking at all aspects, 9 citizens is good, but then, you know, if you try and replace them from education, then we start shrinking our citizen input.
Right. Well, you may recall that the key is to get a broad-based group of 9 that represent those different aspects of the community, different sectors of the community, religious, educational, business, residential, retired people. You want to get a good mix, and I've been getting a lot of names to suggest, and I guess we're not going to get our 3 votes, are we? Thought you'd get a lot,
Yeah.
a lot of that, but I do have some names if you'd like to. I would be happy to share with some names that have been recommended to me that people thought would be good. And if you want me to, since we're talking about this, I sent that memo out. It talks about time commitment, timeline and time commitment. And if you want me to put just kind of that, so it's something you could give to a prospective person, just talking about their time commitment. And maybe I could even get more detail from Dan, because as it said, 4 to 6 meetings, maybe orchestrating one event. I'm not sure what that means, but the meetings are a lot, 1 to 2 to get organized. They do outreach, and then the big thing is gathering the data, getting the data, finding the priorities, and going from there. And the consultant obviously helps with all of that. But I could do that if you'd like. When you talk to prospective members for the advisory committee, it's 4 to 5 meetings, or 4 to 6 meetings over 5 months that will start in April. The report would be done sometime in September, most likely.
Yeah. That's kind of the questions the people I've talked to. They're wanting to know time and how long, and they're excited about it. But they're
Yeah.
that's the question. It would
Yeah.
really be, I think, beneficial to have that
I'll
hand out.
contact Dan and see if he can expand on that. That's the information I got initially, was the 4 to 6 meetings and one event, and beyond that, how the marketing. I think it's more than just finding those avenues to get to those populations, not actually doing it. But
And did he say 9 was ideal, or 9 to 12? or-
7 to 9.
7 to 9.
He prefers
Smaller.
7, but 9's a good number because there's 3 of three.
Yeah.
Well, if you go to 12, then we could get 3 right.
Keep dreaming.
No, he's done this process a lot, and it's not, it wouldn't work the way he runs the process anyway. He's told me, just 9 would be his maximum.
Wow.
He
Okay.
it gets any bigger, to him, it's not workable for that process they use. But, you know, hey, if you mandated 12, I don't think you would say no. But I'd recommend the 9. I think it's a good number.
Yeah. The fee for the services was not to exceed $17,000 with estimated out-of-pocket travel costs, $4,250 for a total of $21,250. You know,
I will say he's never exceeded his travel proposals. He said, I've never succeeded. So they're always under, so.
Any questions? Feel size 9, each of us nominate
I
3?
think so.
That good?
And maybe discuss that next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, glad you mentioned that, because we would need to appoint him next week,
Yeah.
so they could get organized, because he wants to have the first meeting in April, 1st of April.
All right.
But I would like to discuss them as we put the team together, just make sure we do have good representation. We don't all pick somebody from the school district or all from the college or whatever.
Okay. So we'll discuss our participants next week, and now, if there's no more questions or discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I don't have my notes in front of me. So I move that we accept the proposal from Tanner LLC for a community-based strategic planning engagement. Is that pretty close?
That's good.
All right.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Great.
Next item on our agenda, consider discussing City Hall and Public Safety Facility Project and providing future direction. Okay. Well, we've asked for a proposal from Andy Pitt, Trainer, HL, to do some initial work on the existing City Hall to waterproof, basically seal the building, roof, walls, windows. And you want to update us on?
Yeah, as you know, we contacted Andy Pitts and Trainer to put together that proposal, and they said they could get back to us within a certain time frame. Well, that passed, and we hadn't heard. But Andy Pitts sent us an email a couple of days ago saying they had to slow down on it. They'd had I don't know if it was somebody in their firm passed away, and so they had to slow down on some things. So anyway, the update is that we got the proposal today, this afternoon. And so I told, it wasn't Andy, but another architect that I was emailing, that this would be on the agenda for the 22nd, and they would make arrangements to try to be here.
Okay.
If nothing else, we could do a Skype or phone, but they would, I think you'd have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I told them the commission would have a lot of questions.
Okay, so we'll have the proposal for what we'll call Phase 1 next week, to continue on looking at beyond this, this phase. Well, we want to visit, Commission want to visit with Andy about Phase 2 when he's here, or do we want to go with a RFP for the next phase? Do we want to reassemble data to go back through? Should we start looking where we left off with the report?
I wouldn't mind talking to him
Discuss?
about it while he's here,
Okay,
but I'm in favor of an RFP procedure of some kind, although I'm still not sure we want to spend a lot of money on a consultant if we're not even sure we're going to do the project. So that concerns me too, because we have to get this new building approved. So I don't,
The new building, existing,
the new public safety building.
right. But what about the existing city hall? 'Cause
Okay, I thought you were talking about going on to the next
No,
building. Okay, I'm
no,
sorry.
I guess
Excuse me.
almost, what I see are two projects.
Right. Okay,
And the renovation of the existing building could be a standalone, because like you're saying, yeah, we need for the public safety building, an RFP approach. We've got to look at not only the location, but maybe go through a little more detail. Chief Harrison brought up a point at the strategic planning about the qualifications to make sure
right.
the firms are experienced in public safety,
Yep.
particularly police environments and conditions that are specific for him. So, we can discuss with Andy generally the public safety building and why he's here, maybe review some of his expertise, discuss continuing with phase two on existing city halls, some projections. Maybe he could give us some ideas of time frame, involvement, options. Main thing is reduction of costs. I think we need to pull the 16 million
Yeah.
that was initially forecasted down.
Right. That was my biggest concern on the public safety building.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The initial cost, and there's some other items that have come up in the final study and master plan that Andrew Pitts had submitted, that I think we all like to visit with him, and we have some questions about still.
It's been a while since he did the presentation, so this, between now and next Thursday, if each of us could review and come in with some questions so that we can see that we're setting some landmarks to move forward. Look at ideas from him that we can take forward, and then shortly, well, after next week, we can bring it up again to start looking at maybe a schedule that we see roughly for entertaining RF. Well, first, I don't know if we want to start with an RFQ, request for qualifications, making sure that we get qualified firm
Right.
submitting on it,
That's what I
then
recommend,
go to the
RFQ.
proposal. Yeah, yeah. Okay?
Good.
So will you get the proposal to us since it came in after you review it? Can you get it to us before?
I'll get it to you ASAP.
Yeah, okay, great. Then we have-
Won't even wait for the agenda packet to come out. I'll get it to you because it's.
Okay, thank
I
you.
have plenty of time to go through it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on City Hall or public safety? Any comments? Okay, let's move on to item D. Consider discussing replacement policy for fire protection apparatus.
All right, we've talked about this before. As you know, the last time we came with, well, we thought we were coming with a proposal to purchase a demo truck, and despite what was in the paper, Sean had not committed to buy a fire truck. It was, that was not in factual in any stretch of the imagination, but we did have a demo, but it was pulled out from under us. So we've been looking at that, and we talked a lot about new versus used, and why perhaps we should buy used apparatus versus new. So we've been looking at the financial on that, how that would work, and would there be a financial advantageous to buy used? And we've also, we've actually, I'll turn it over to Mike here in a minute to go through an analysis. As you can see on your board there, he's got an analysis. That's just the start of it that we've looked at. So that's where we want to start. There's no definite recommendation in here, other than what, we don't have a motion or anything. But you've heard us talk, and we'll go through this and see if you agree that buying new is better. If you read the RCA, one of the telling things to me is we have not invested as a community in the fire department of apparatus since 2002. Haven't bought a pumper, haven't bought a ladder, and we've all talked about that's been sometimes the problem is not keeping up with our equipment and so forth in every area. So there's reasons to buy new, there's reasons to buy used. But we think the best reasons are to buy new. And we'll go through the financials, one of them, but it's not the only reason. Just tongue-in-cheek now, this is tongue-in-cheek, so don't. The first meeting I attended, I had a citizen stand up at that microphone and say, Mr. City Manager, you have to provide the equipment for the employees to do their job. So I'm trying to do that. Anyway, so I'll turn it over to Mike, and we can walk through this and show you kind of where at least a financial standpoint.
Okay, one thing I want to do is I want to have Sean get up and give a little brief background and how it impacts the department from that standpoint, and then I can touch on the financial pieces of it and answer any questions you have.
Hey, Sean.
How are you?
Good.
How are you?
Did you bring your own audience?
So as you all know, I have a concern with purchasing used apparatus. You don't know if you're going to get a year, 5 years, 10 years out of it, before you need to make another investment. I think it's imperative we have the proper equipment. It has to be dependable equipment, not only for firefighter safety, but to protect the citizens and properties, which include our school systems, downtown businesses, large industries, which include Cessna, Standard Motors, FedEx, Hackney, Matcor, nursing homes, and assisted living facilities. I just think it's very imperative that we have the right equipment, and it's dependable equipment that we can depend on for life safety. This time we have a 75-foot aerial, so we need to extend our height capabilities. ARCO building's 82.6 feet high, Freshman building's 82.6 feet high, and Commercial Bank's 82.8. So our current ladder truck will not even reach the top of these buildings. So it's time to upgrade to be able to protect these downtown buildings.
Do you know how tall Penn Terrace is by chance?
I might have that somewhere.
That'd be a problem.
I
with
think
the
it's
grade.
like
I was thinking the
69,
same thing.
69.1 or something like that. So
Okay,
69.8.
thank you.
And the other part is they can't always, they're not parking right next to the
Right.
building.
Right.
Sometimes
Especially there.
They gotta get that angle, so you need
Mhm.
Yeah, it depends on where cars are parked and how close we can get in there, and you don't want to be in a collapse zone, so there's a lot of factors to that reach. So I think safety for the firefighters and the citizens is the primary reason for going with new apparatus.
So I'm guessing not many communities have a 5-year-old truck that they decide to sell when it's in perfectly good condition. So,
Right.
Did-
No,
but there are companies that take used vehicles and overhaul them and certify them, right?
that's correct.
So what's the drawback there? I mean, we've got a guarantee that way, right?
Well, with a new truck, you're going to get the warranties. You're going to get the warranty on the ladder, on the, the engine, the body, the paint even on the truck.
So the warranty, if it's been overhauled and certified, that doesn't mean it's the same warranty as new.
That's right. Correct.
What's your warranty length on a new truck?
It is lifetime warranty on the frame, 7-year warranty on the paint, 10-year body structural warranty, 2-year aerial mechanical warranty, and a 20-year aerial structural warranty.
And the newer aerials all have a platform at the top, is that correct?
Well, you can either get ladder or platform,
Okay.
either way.
The platform is vastly more useful and safer,
Platform
right?
is safety issue again,
Yeah.
firefighter safety. You can get a larger volume of water out of a platform because you can have 2 monitors, nozzles going. So
But if you have to rescue a person, I don't see how you even do that on a ladder. I mean,
if
I'm
we
sure it's
had
done,
to,
but
say, rescue a person from Penn Terrace with a ladder truck and they're wheelchair bound or they're gonna have to be carried down that ladder, platform, we just load them on it, bring
Right.
them down. And if it is a situation where they're overcome by smoke and we need to do CPR on them, we can do it in the platform all the way to the ground.
okay. Thank you, Sean.
Okay, on the financial aspect, we looked at both the used, I think Sean contacted 4 manufacturers to see what kind of quote, non-binding quote we could get, both from a demo standpoint as well as a new. At the time that we put this together yesterday, we'd only gotten a quote from a new manufacturer, 1 manufacturer. He was able to look up and found 5 different units that were used, varying in cost and age. So through the analysis, I looked at it 2 ways. Of course, there were some assumptions that we took into consideration on that as we were putting it together, and put the span of this analysis over 20 years, because that's the lifespan, useful lifespan of this type of equipment. So looking at it from the new standpoint, obviously that takes us from day 1 to day 20. And on the used side, there was 5 different pieces of equipment there. We identified a unit that was 10 years old, and we did the analysis there with the assumption at the end of the first 10 years, there'd be another purchase of another used one, potentially, that was also 10 years old. So that'd get us through the 20-year span. Looked at it both from the cash, just writing a check, which I don't think that we're in a position to do that today, but just so everybody could see what that looked like. Then we looked at it from the lease purchase analysis. And through this, looking at it either way, the cost of the equipment, I went back on the equipment that we've purchased compared to what we're going to have to spend today. Then also some studies that Sean has found through the manufacturers and then other resources. The inflation rate on this equipment is about 5 to 7% a year. So it's dramatically going to go up. And even buying a piece of used equipment today, as in the case that we illustrated here, that's $550,000, that same piece of equipment, if you could find it 10 years down the road, it's going to be pushing $900,000. So looking at all this and our cash outlay, either for 1 new one over a 20-year period or 2 used ones over that same 20-year period, the cash investment, either by writing a check today or lease purchasing it over that period of time, it is cheaper to go with the new apparatus. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to.
Well, when you look at our budget where we're looking at another truck next year and we're budgeting $400,000 for it, you know, I think we need to start looking group, not just we're going to address the ladder truck now, the next year we're going to address this truck. We need to look at equipment for the department, and you know I'm concerned about our staff, what they're working with. You look at the ladder truck, the frequency that you'll need a platform compared to, is next year, are we looking at a pumper truck?
Well, that could change, and maybe Sean can address it better, but if we were to get this truck, that could change the need for a pumper right away.
Well,
Okay,
see, that's what,
So we would, and then we'd take a closer look at actually our replacement schedule.
yeah, and-
well, a pumper truck is used a lot more frequently than the aerial. So I would be more inclined to look at a new pumper that's going to be used on every fire, that's getting the water from the hydrant to, than trying to depend and deplete your ladder truck to go out on a small fire that you didn't need the apparatus. But, you know, if you could use a used aerial and then afford a new pumper, then I think that would be wiser in my understanding, because the pumper, it has to be dependable. You have to get water to the scene. And, you know, some of the buildings that they're named have sprinkler systems, so they're going to be beneficial in fighting the fire initially. You know, some of them are cast in place concrete, so you're not going to need aerial on the roof. It's not going to go through the concrete. But, you know, the pumper is kind of the lifeblood of the fire department. If that pumper goes out and somebody's made entry, they're at risk. You know, I'd like to look at what the needs are and put the money where it's really going to protect our firefighters, and, you know, evaluate the new pumper over a new aerial. That's just my opinion, but.
I agree we should buy a new pumper too. You know, I think you need, one thing, you lose that, you buy a used platform, and that's your major piece of equipment. And yeah, does it go on as many calls? No, but it often goes to calls you might not think it goes to, not just because of height, but because of reach in residential areas. And Sean can speak to this. But with a brand new truck, you're going to get 10 years of opportunity costs there with a new truck. You buy a used one, you're not going to get that. And why are they selling a used truck? Now, maybe a dealer has bought it, has done some refurbished work on it, but there's no guarantee. And as I've read the literature and looked around, you know, there's all sorts of anecdotal stories about, you know, we bought a 12-year-old truck and had a warranty for a year, and it broke down on the way to a fire in the intersection, you know, a week later after they got it. I mean, there's stories like that. You take that risk, you understand, and hopefully, if you do look at used, you would have to be very circumspect in what you buy. And in fact, you'd want to look, probably, use the word consultant again, it's been thrown around a lot, but there are consultants out there that would evaluate that equipment for you to at least help you find that. But again, you lose that 10 years of new operational benefit that you won't get in a 10-year. And often, as Sean stated, you're buying somebody else's problems. Again, why are they selling a 10-year pumper? There's either they've had a lot of problems with it, or they're just changing the way they fight fires. They don't want a 100-foot ladder or aerial anymore. If you can add anything, Sean. But so and then, as we said, we won't have to next year buy another one. Well, I mean, Sean can speak to the replacement schedule and how we could adjust that in that regard.
We have looked at that, and I will let Sean elaborate further, but through this process, we've looked at it. The new ladder truck will be able to push any purchase of a pumper out 3 to 5 years. The other two replacements thereafter would come in that 5 or 6 to 10 year time frame. So
Can
we're
you
going to extend those time frames out.
Can you explain that to me, Sean? Because I don't understand why having a new ladder truck makes our pumper last longer.
Well, the platform, as Leonard was talking about, having a water supply to the entry crew at a structure fire, the platform would do the same thing. It has a tank on it. We'd hook to the hydrant just like the engine. It'd be on all structure fires, so it would do the same job as the engine did, plus we'd already have an aerial device on scene with us. So it's the same as an engine, it's just a bigger truck with a platform.
I see. Thus the extended life of the pumper. We can put off buying the new pumper for 3 to 5 years or something possibly.
Right.
If a new one came on the market, I'm sorry, if a used one came on the market, chances are we might have to move pretty quickly too. Is that correct? I mean, it seems like the demo, you brought it to us and it was already gone.
Right.
Is that going to be the case if we go after a used one too, that one comes on the market and?
I can't answer that, we've never
Okay.
bought used
Okay,
trucks, so.
all right, fair enough.
How much do we have in the 5 mil for cash to go towards a purchase?
For your capital reserve,
Yeah, 2 years ago, we authorized 5 mil increase for major equipment purchases and roads. How much money do we have to go down payment on this?
so beginning in 2019, that'll be available. 2017 and 2018, we had to absorb that in the budget to support the CIP for those years.
So we have nothing.
The money's still sitting there, but it is
It's
spoken
allocated.
for, yeah.
It's already allocated.
Yeah.
So we'd be looking at 2019,
2019, that's correct.
$250,000.
No, we should have
Roughly.
3 years of it.
Yeah, there would be 3 years, but we've earmarked those dollars for 17 and 18 capital improvement projects that were in the budget last year.
And the payments, I mean, the way we were structuring it originally, you know, the payments would be in 2019 to start. We'd work it out that way, so it's they're not in the budget this year, so, and that's the original
That's
plan
correct.
was to,
So if we had kept the money where it was, we'd have about 500,000 down. We'd be maybe financing 500,000 instead of $1 million.
That would be correct.
So it doesn't sound like the commission is the one that's holding up the purchase.
Well, I think if you recall last year during the budget cycle, we explained that to you, that we were going to be utilizing that money to support the CIP and the capital projects that we had for 2018. Without that money, we were going to have to cut out those projects.
That's what should have happened.
And then the
I thought that's what
4.67
it
mil
was
that
for.
was approved, that was used that was going to finance $3 million in bond for healthcare that wasn't issued then. Where's that 4.67 mil money?
You could say that it's just been absorbed over the years into the general fund.
And so, okay, so we don't have any, okay, there's no money there then.
No, there's nothing set back on that.
Mr. Mayor, I saw on your agenda tonight, it said, consider discussing replacement policy. Were we thinking of making any decisions tonight, or was this truly just?
There's just discussion.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah. A lot of food for thought.
Yeah.
I mean, it is telling when you look at I call it life cycle costing, if you will. You look over that 20-year period, and in the long term, it costs you less when you look at, especially, get into net present value and the dollars and over that lifespan. In the long term, it is cheaper. I mean,
Cheaper to buy new.
yeah.
And then for 10 years, you're driving a relatively new truck instead of always a used one.
Versus always buying a 10-year truck, or
Yeah.
you can.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the market is out there, and how many times you can find a 10-year-old truck, because typically they're selling them 15 or older, because departments keep them that long unless there's some reason for change.
Yeah, it's kind of, some departments have a replacement plan, which I hope we can get that way in in all of our equipment.
Vehicle
are
replacement fund.
Definitely. It's just, we're always caught behind the 8 ball
Yeah.
in everything we do, that we're always up against. And we got declining property valuation, we're gonna have reduced mill. We gotta change the way we look at things. I don't have any more questions. I'd go through this, and if I'll email or give you a call for further information, or
Let me ask you this, if we were to find another demo, like we thought we had last time, I mean, do you want us to bring back something at some point? If we find a deal like that, a demo, which was a good deal, and it's new, but.
I can't see any reason not to bring it to the commission. Can you, gentlemen?
now we can consider it. I don't know, it just, the additional money. I'm just concerned of our total budget, but yeah, if you find something, let us know.
And City Attorney reminded me, we lost this last one is, because we were coming to get authorized to sign a letter of intent. If we'd had that ability to sign that letter of intent, it wasn't purchasing it, but it was just a letter of intent, then it would have been held for us. So I don't know if you want to give us that kind of authority moving forward if we find a good deal. Again, the letter of intent isn't purchasing, it's just saying we intend to, if we get approval, final approval from the commission, then we'll move forward.
I wouldn't feel comfortable tonight doing that.
Okay. But,
No.
so if we do find one, we'll
Yes, sometimes there's a reason for missing deals that, it just,
serendipity that we missed it.
yeah. I know, new is nice, but sometimes when you can't afford new, you gotta use, and we got a lot on our table. And safety, yeah, that, I'm concerned about our people, that they're properly
That's the
protected
top
and
of our
accrued.
list. That's the top of our list, safety to
Yeah.
firefighters and citizens.
Yeah, because, looking at the report on the maintenance of the 93 ladder truck, that's embarrassing, really.
That we haven't maintained it properly?
Yeah, and I hope that we can develop not only a vehicle replacement, but look at an affirmative maintenance schedule. And I know that last year a lot was done to make it safe, that for the years from what your report that you gave us, our crews were at risk.
Yeah. And some of the maintenance schedule that I looked at reported to me, the schedule checking things 5 years apart for a ladder test.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. So, I agree with that. And Sean's working on that, putting together not just ladder, but apparatus,
Yeah.
making sure, and like the ladder, that's gonna be every year.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna do all those things, and everything addressed in that 2016 issue were addressed immediately as soon as
Yeah.
we found out about them, what were the issues. And so we don't want to send out an apparatus, especially in an area with firefighters trusting their life to it and citizens trusting their life to it.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've been sending out a used truck for years. Basically,
It hasn't
once-
always made it out.
Yeah, but, I mean, basically, we've been using the used truck for
Yeah.
a good number of years.
You keep them, but you keep them, you know what you've done. You've done the maintenance, you have the whole history of the vehicle.
Right.
So you have everything you've done, you know what you've done, and if you properly maintain that, you certify, obviously, you want to do that, but it gets to a point that they call it the useful life. Some I've seen 17 years versus 20, but there's no real standard on exactly how long, but we took the 20 years. That's a reasonable standard for this type of apparatus. But you just want to make sure you have a safe piece of apparatus that And I've been told, what I'm told is sometimes that wouldn't even make it, you can get out of the garage. Others can probably tell me more stories, but we've had some issues with that. And right now, we're faced with an issue, as you know, a major repair to the engine. $20-some thousand is the estimate. So,
One more question, Will. When we're looking at pumper truck replacement, will we go back and apply for a grant? I understood that they weren't giving grant money for aerials, but they may for pumpers.
If there's still grants out there, yes.
Okay,
definitely.
so there's always a possibility
Yeah.
that we may get a
Yeah.
pumper truck through somebody else's money, not ours.
Right.
So that would be something that we would
If
definitely
pumpers get
apply
higher
for.
priority, we have a better I think we would have an excellent chance, because we've been in the mix, a couple of years now, and switch to pumper, that might, yeah, definitely. If there's
Good.
grants out there, we're going for them.
Do we have some information on the pumper, just its history put together, so,
Sure.
if we're gonna look at that next.
Age and so forth.
Right, kind of history of it. Okay,
Certainly.
so if any other questions, then we'll go to the next item. Item E, consider discussing options for providing future fire EMS services to the residents of Independence.
Can I make a statement before you start?
Sure.
You may not be aware of this. I know many in the audience are aware of this, and I think I mentioned it a couple of times. There was a meeting yesterday of the 4 cities and their EMS directors. So Dave Callen and the other EMS directors met in Coffeyville, met with other CRMC staff. There were staff there from the county. County commissioner as well came, and talked about EMS. Dave kind of led the meeting, and he'd set this up over a month ago to try to just talk about how can we best provide EMS services in the county. Is there ways that we can work together, kind of that mutual cooperation thing and talking about. And I'll maybe Dave at some point will come up and say more, but the reason I'm bringing it up is the result of that. One of the results of that is they formed a task force or a committee to look at a countywide EMS, which has been looked at before. I don't know how systematically with consultant or whatever, but I know they've looked at it before, more than once, and it's never proven feasible because of loss of ambulance in the smaller communities. They didn't want to lose their ambulance station there. Anyway, so this task force is to come back with an analysis, and what they're going to do is they're going to propose to use a consultant. It's a professional in that to come in and do a study on how would you provide a countywide EMS service, an EMS service countywide. And so I bring that up in that the next item, of course, is talking about, well, what should Independence do in providing EMS service? So my recommendation, well, if we're going to study the county providing or looking at that model, shouldn't we wait for that before we do anything ourselves and looking at our own model? It's just, but that's just a thought I had after hearing that they were forming a group and getting a consultant to do that study, because that obviously could change the way we or EMS is provided to the city of Independence. It would be a countywide, it wouldn't be city, it would be county, but it would be serving all of 4 communities. So I don't know how far you want to go on this
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah, what I was wondering and looking at with our emergency department here and the ambulance service that Labette Health provides for the county, then at the same time, you know, if you're gonna look at countywide, then if we discussed or would entertain a proposal from them, then we could have an accurate, it's not like doing one, then doing another. We could have them both coming in at the same time for evaluation. Looking at the advantage of when you combine, you can cut down administrative costs, you can cut down vehicle costs, so, you know, and associating with our healthcare provider closer would provide more direct interaction for our paramedics, our EMTs to be trained in protocol direct from a healthcare provider. I think it's good to see the county trying to look, but at the same time, I'd like to see what other option that Labette would be able to do, either working with our staff as a you know, them providing assistance with still ours city ran, or if they absorbed ours into theirs and could provide ambulance service through their emergency department.
I'd like to see all our options if we're going to consider making a change. I know nothing about this area, obviously, but, you know, when you appointed me to city commission, you know, I was told at the time that we saved a huge amount of money by combining the two, fire and EMS, into one department, because it helps so much with staffing and all. And so if somebody else is going to take over EMS, then that leaves our fire as a standalone, and then so are we going to be spending a lot more money again? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know that anybody does, but it seems like that's something we need to talk about.
Well, I think
I'm all for
that's-
saving money.
I think that's what we need, the total comparison of all options, not
Yeah.
just pick one option at a time, but work to
Absolutely.
explore what other ways, because we can save funds and still provide adequate health care and fire protection to the citizens and protect our staff, then that's the bottom line. You know, our dollars are getting tighter, and, you know, just like, well, when we approved the mill levy increase, at that time, that was going to be sufficient. And now we find that due to expenditures for some reason, what we had intended for streets and the equipment, that money's been absorbed. We're going to have to, so costs have gone up to take our 5 mil that we thought was a cushion. That's what, you know, you were talking like a 10 mil cushion you felt we needed, and we compromised with 5 mil because we said, we've got to build up a reserve for these issues. And now we find out, maybe you were right, because the 5 mil is
It's happened
gone.
once before, so.
Yeah.
no, okay.
That's when you met Ann.
Yeah.
You proposed, that was the
There you
right
go,
decision.
exactly.
But no, I think we're gonna have to look at all options. If countywide is gonna save us money, fine. If we can look at Labette providing or assisting, we need to evaluate all areas.
My point was, do you do them concurrently? The county's doing this, looking at countywide, and if that comes back and said, yeah, this is the model, so we wasted our money looking at independence, because before I even heard this, I was gonna recommend a consultant to come and take that objective look about what's the best model to provide fire EMS to the citizens of Independent. So I was going the same direction. But then I got this other group that looking at this plan, and you certainly could do them concurrently.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if how we're going to pay for the county one that they're going to do, whether they're going to ask the cities to pay for it. We probably have to pitch in a little bit, but
They
that,
have a
if
bake
you want to
sale.
move, fire sale, they say. I mean, you could
Chili
do
feed.
those concurrent studies, you know,
Yeah.
and we, because I strongly believe you need to look at, from an outside perspective, what would be the best way to provide EMS service, fire EMS service. Because I know on the agenda, you talk about splitting fire EMS. As Gary said, when we combined them, when the city did that years ago, it made economic sense, saved a lot of money. And anecdotally, I see you split those two, no matter how economic you may become on fire side, it's gonna cost you more money, you know, between the two costs. Let me just make one more point about splitting. I don't wanna go too far in the weeds on this. But when you, if you were to, say the consultant came back and said, splitting will make sense, you'll save money. Okay, we split. So what's the fire department gonna be? Is it gonna be a first responder fire department, or is it just gonna be a fire department? If you know what I mean by first responders. So we're still gonna have, if it's a first responder, we're still gonna have firefighters, and then you're gonna have trained EMTs, and maybe all the way up to paramedic at times. The last community I worked in, we had this same model, worked very well. We combined, and then another city, we weren't combined. It was a private ambulance service, but our fire department was first responder. We had EMTs all the way up to paramedic, if you want to be a first responder. And I don't see how you could not be a first responder. Just when you get in the Independence, what it was, 10 to 15 fires a year, if that's all they're going to do is put fires out, that's expensive for, you know, cost per fire. So you would have, to me, you'd have to be a first responder. And again, I've seen this model we have here works all over the country, and I think it's working well. Often it's not for everybody, that type of job, but it's a model that works well. And we have similar issues. Don't need to get in that too much, but we had the similar issues with firefighter, paramedics, and turnover. But anyway, if you want to do a concurrent thing, again, I would recommend having a consultant come in and look at that for the city of Independence. This is how we do it now. Is this the right way, or is there a better way? Contracting with Labatt's or CRMC running it? You know, there's different.
Don't forget Canyon Sugar.
And I mean, that'd be, that's part of the issues of countywide is that it's been looked at a couple of times, and those are the reasons I'm told they dropped out, is they would be losing their ambulance pretty much, that's stationed there, and that's hard to live in a community where you don't have ambulance service response for 20 minutes or so. Anyway, that's my thoughts, is if you want to move forward with us looking at something, that's what I'd recommend, us getting an RFQ out. And
Well, if you want to, you know, it doesn't hurt to prepare an RFQ, let us look at it and go that route too. The thing, and you know, there's always two ways to look at it. Sometimes you can save so much money that you sacrifice the quality. You've got to have ample firefighters to fight a fire, and you got to have ample paramedics to serve the call, but you can't feed one to the other or the other is suffering. So there's some number that you've got to have dedicated people to respond to a fire, that everyone is safe on that call.
Sure.
And, you know, you can, if you par down your crews too much and you're running 2 medicals and you got 3 firefighters responding to a fire, those 3 are at risk. You got 1 operating the pump and 2 to go in, or 1 to go in and 1 to stay out. You know, that's the thing. I think we need to evaluate and look at dollars is important, but the quality outcome at the end, because, you know, it's like we're talking about, we want a new truck to provide adequate protection for our buildings and our people, but we've got to look that we have adequate number of people manning the equipment to protect them too. So I think
disagree
your
with that.
idea of,
a consultant would help
Right.
would help you tell you that, if we're short-staffed or not enough, or
Right.
right mix, or and so forth. And whether it makes sense to go private or public. I mean, like I said, community I was in, we had totally private ambulance, wasn't affiliated with a hospital. Fire department was first responders, we had out the EMT. But there was some on the fire department that wanted to take over EMS. And we were right in the middle of a station relocation study with a consultant, station relocation study and organizational analysis. And the consultant just said, right now, the size of your department, you don't want to do that. They looked at it as making money. They thought we'd make a lot of money by that. And that's, I mean, right now, that's the fire department, that's where transfers and costs, and certainly is where there's income, but even here, it doesn't pay for itself. But all I'm saying is, there's different models, and a city our size I previously was in, and other cities, this model works and has worked for a long time. We're still in growing pains, whether people believe it or not, that 2012, when this merged, it takes a while to work through a culture change like that. It doesn't take 2 years, like, it just doesn't. And you have upheaval, you have change. I mean, I was familiar with a large corporation that was going through a culture change, and they were in their 6th year and still working on it. Because, I mean, it just takes time. It's not, we're still working through that.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think-
we'll get there.
I think looking at all our options, let the county group look together, see what they can do. I think we need to look at our system, and I think even Labette giving us an idea what they could do for us too. You can't make a good decision without plenty of information, and I think we need to look at all options.
Yeah, absolutely. And if the county is going to hire a consultant to look at the whole county, maybe we could,
I just
tag
said that
along
you
with,
have to-
okay.
Maybe they can do both.
Yeah, exactly,
And
while they're here,
seriously,
maybe-
they
yeah.
probably could be a.
Because they'd be
county
looking at
scale
our
for 'em.
city system anyway as part of the county study,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. And sometimes separate is better so that they're not led to lead
True.
one direction, because the pocketbook influences opinions. Not that I would do as an architect but
No, never.
any thoughts?
No, I think that's right. I think
Okay.
that the more information we have, we just need to look at everything. We need to find out where we can operate more efficient, with less cost. We have a lot of money that needs to go out, and fortunately, we don't have a lot of money. So at some point in time, we need to operate better.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. No more questions, we'll move on to item F. Consider discussing 2016 financial audit and request of auditors to meet individually with city commissioners prior to public presentation on March 22nd, 2018. It was presented, I guess the audit is done, which we haven't received the audit yet.
Right, you'll get, as soon as we get the hard copies,
That's,
but it's done, we're told.
yeah, and the time to review it between next Thursday, it sure be nice to have it Monday,
You think we can get
so
it?
we can have a few days to look at it.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
Oh, we have it. I'm sorry. I didn't get that
okay.
update. I didn't get that update
Okay,
yet.
good.
We'll get it to you ASAP.
The thought of, I guess I look at the input and questions that you two have beneficial. If we sit down and meet individually and then come to the public presentation, it takes twice the time, but I lose the perspective that each of you have, because each one of us is different. And it adds guidance to me to hear your questions and your input. Where each of us sit down, then we're going through that, but then when we come together, if I've already been given an answer, I'm not gonna ask, but you lose that knowledge. And the same with you, I lose the knowledge that you're having from your interviews. So, you know, the separate presentation, for me, I'm not interested in that. I don't know if you guys want to do that, or just, do we want to go with just one presentation, the 22nd, from the auditors?
I don't have a strong preference. I can see the advantage either way. To sit down and go over it in some detail, one-on-one, so they can explain things to me might be helpful, but if we want to do that in a public meeting, it may be a long one, but I really don't have a preference.
And it's hard to say now that we don't have the audit to look at.
Right.
We're assuming
Yeah.
either bad or good. I'm not gonna understand it, or you're gonna understand it. So it's hard to say what questions we have. I guess the thing we could do is, as we're reading it, make notes and submit the questions to Craig, that he could assemble them and then give them to the auditor ahead of time. And then they would be prepared for any questions we have.
Happy to do that.
Because, you know, and if you've got them, if we could come, can we come by and pick them up tomorrow?
I don't have the physical copies, I just have an electronic copy.
So you could email it to us.
Yeah. That'd work,
Yeah.
too. The sooner we have them, the more time to give us to go through and develop our questions, then it would be better.
How many pages, 750 pages?
At least 750. No, I'm not sure how many pages.
That's gonna take us an hour to
War and
read
Peace,
it.
It's probably, I don't know, probably about 100 pages.
Can
just
I wait for the
guesstimating.
movie?
Excuse me?
Can I wait for the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be a horror movie, though.
So you can or you can't email
Oh, no, I can email
Okay.
it, yeah.
them? Okay, great. Yeah. Sometimes, if the internet is working, if your email,
Right.
you got the bugs
Are you
worked out.
gonna have that working tomorrow?
Well, I got mine working now,
Okay.
too.
All right, Lewis?
Yeah, mine's working.
All right.
Yeah, I found one of the problems on setting up the computer, 2 different email addresses, but when I logged on to the same one, thinking I did 2 different addresses. And that's why
Oops.
I got it fixed. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Then-
So I'll get them to you, and you'll compile some questions. We
Yeah.
get them back to the auditor, they can begin preparing,
Right.
having some understanding. And I think they're probably gonna know where some of the questions are coming, but give you all an opportunity to see what's in there, because you're gonna have some questions,
Okay.
no doubt.
So, the obvious question, so that we're not late again, are we starting the audit for 17 yet, or?
We've talked about that, but typically they start in March, or, I'm sorry, not March,
April.
May, somewhere right in there. I had a discussion with them last week, and they said, first things first, let's get this
Yeah.
one done out of the way, and then we'll start that discussion. So I don't have any timeline on 2017's.
Well, let's set a timeline to do it soon, so we're not
As
late.
information, yeah.
Hopefully it'll be this, kind of the standard timeline to start in May and around September,
Okay.
when it'll be delivered.
Great.
That's the-
Yeah,
that's the
I
schedule.
don't anticipate this happening again.
But this one started on time, right?
Yeah, no, it started
Right.
on time, yeah.
Just ran into problems.
Yeah.
Kind of like that ladder truck.
Okay, so we'll start
Something like
May
that.
and we'll look to finish it up September.
That's when it
Tentatively.
typically does. I mean, the auditors are gonna have to give me that schedule. They're the ones that set the
Okay.
schedule.
Okay. Okay, great. Any other questions? And let's go to item G, consider discussing FY 2019 budget preparation schedule. What was it? I guess it was in 2015 or 16, at one of the league conferences. There was a presentation from the finance director of Manhattan, and he had this schedule that he had used. I thought I had an extra copy, but I guess I didn't get one for Mike. The way it was laid out, it gave benchmarks, so going along to know where, because we've always been under the gun to review, and the time to consider where we are has always been kind of sketchy last minute, or we do a marathon department presentation for 4 hours. If we can get a schedule, and it would really help us, and
It'll help me too. It'll
I
help
know.
Mike too. It'll help the department heads too. It'll help us all. We're working on, it's not quite finalized for the 2019 process, but we're getting there. Mike's finalizing that. And I've seen similar, in fact, one of the documents I've done in the past kind of had that same thing, kind of layout. There's myriad ways to do it. The one you see on the screen was the one I, did when got here. It was my second week or so, and we had to put together a schedule and get going because we were a little behind. So it'll be more involved than that. It'll be more like this, but we'll put out a schedule and let you know exactly where those benchmarks are moving forward. So yeah, you got to have a good budget schedule and you got to follow it.
yeah.
So we'll finalize that and get that out. That's part of the budget document in the end. But
What,
I mean, is
there's so much information, and, if the budget is the responsibility of the commission, then we should understand it. And to give the feedback and to fully know what's gonna happen with our finances, so.
And I agree, I don't mean to cut you off, but just looking at that schedule, we tried to build into that very quickly. The proposed budget went to the mayor and commission on July 18. And so the budget didn't have to be adopted until the 14th or the latest, the 15th. So I don't know if you recall, but we discussed about after that first meeting, 3.5-hour meeting, or 4, whatever it was, that we could meet again. We offered to meet as often as you would like. During that, you've got, that schedule, you had just about a month. A month. Basically, you had 4 weeks, and we would have met as many as you wanted. We could meet one night and just talk utilities, or we could meet another night and just talk. It's better to work through it, the first meeting like that, go through the whole budget. But if you're not satisfied, you want to have more. It's your budget. If you remember saying that
Right.
last year, it's your budget. We prepare and put our best professional opinions and recommendations in there, but in the end, it's your budget. And so we'll be happy to meet as often as you would like. After that, again, that schedule, the dates there, it'll be close to that. In terms of giving the proposed budget, it might be. We could probably do it early. I mean, you want it earlier, a month ahead of the adoption date? You want it?
I would anticipate that we'll have that done towards the first part of July. I mean,
Yeah.
we want to see the complete
Yeah, so.
schedule put together.
That'd
We
give you-
want more time on our part that we didn't have last year as well. We had to move fast on our end. Everybody had to move fast because of the late start.
And just trying to get the document put together after.
We're going to be starting on capital here real quick. That's going to be our starting place. We'll get into the operating in May, so we'll be putting it together timely, but we want to sit down and make sure we're putting together a really good plan for y'all.
Yeah,
For-
so if-
For you all, plus for us to execute it at the city.
So if first week of July, if that's appropriate, that's what we'll shoot for. I mean, that's what Mike said. We're not starting, obviously, as late as we did last year, so if we can get it to him the first part of July.
I think that would be great.
Getting
I
done
need a little
early is
time.
better than,
Yeah, need a little time to digest it,
yeah.
dig through it.
And then, the time, we've had some 3-4 hour meetings going through,
Let's not do that
It-
again.
Yeah,
No.
I've done it different ways. I've had marathon meetings where you, like, little marathon where each department gives a presentation, one long meeting, and then come back, or we'd have different departments on different nights, we'd have 2 or 3 one night, and, you know, or afternoon. Hint, hint.
Yeah,
But, so there's a lot of different ways of doing it, and if you would like us to keep it, like, schedule a 2-hour block, and then try to, for that review, we just put what we think we can cover in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Or something like that, if that's, you can think about it, you know, there's done it in lots of different ways, and a lot of it comes down to what the commission would like to do, what the council would like to do, and how they'd like to review the budget in a given time frame. So.
I think there's just gonna be a big block of time when we look at the calendar. You all are gonna be allocated sufficient time that you can say, I want this, this, and this. I mean, you won't see it outlined in that calendar that on July 14th, we're gonna meet to discuss this, and then 17th, we're gonna discuss this. We'll do it as the schedule accommodates you all. That time will have to be allocated and blocked out for you.
okay,
So,
good,
Well,
good.
as we finalize it, and then we'll get back to you and say, look, you'll have it this time, and then we'll suggest maybe, you know, 3 or 4 meetings to work through all the departments.
Okay,
We'll kind of try to even it out. Won't do public works and utilities and police on the same day.
yeah,
All right,
okay, that's all.
thanks for the information.
As we discussed this being a work session, Gary, Lewis or Gary?
Gary Lewis and the Playboy.
Yeah.
Now, I really don't have anything else. I'm anticipating Andrew Pitts and being able to sit down
Okay.
with him again, and then I'll have some questions
Okay,
and some concerns for him.
okay,
But,
good.
And I'll bring them up at that time.
Okay, good. Gary,
Mr. Mayor, I'm good.
are you well?
Yes, I'm hungry, too.
Okay. Well, with that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Still moved.
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We're adjourned.
Thank you,
Thank
thank you,
you.
thank you. Mike, you didn't ask me for one.
Good.
Oh.
You're passing it? What?
I absolutely.